Everyone was talking about power, not just strength, influence. Jason Statham and Steven Seagal weren't just action stars anymore. In this world, they were symbols. Precision and force, speed and brutality. Two different styles, one terrifying result. When word spread that they had teamed up, people stopped laughing, because together they didn't just win fights, they erased opposition. Stories flooded in from every corner. Underground rings cleared out overnight. Criminal crews vanished without explanation. Security footage mysteriously went dark right before things went wrong. Witnesses all said the same thing. They moved like they'd trained together for years. Statham was the spear, fast, surgical, relentless. Seagal was the wall, unmoving, crushing, inevitable. No wasted motion, no mercy. Crowds gathered wherever they appeared. Some watched in awe, others in fear. Most just stayed out of the way. The message was clear. Don't challenge them. Reporters started calling them unstoppable. Fans called them the greatest duo alive. Even veterans, people who had seen real violence, admitted something felt different this time. Statham enjoyed the attention. Seagal barely acknowledged it. But both knew one thing. Together, they controlled the room. Then came the whispers, quiet at first, almost laughed off, a single name. Chuck Norris. Statham smirked when he heard it. "Come on," he said. "That's a legend, not a threat." Seagal didn't respond. He'd heard the name before, too many times, from people who didn't exaggerate, from men who never scared easily. The whispers grew louder. Not warnings, reminders, that some men don't need teams. They don't announce themselves. They don't prove anything. They just show up when it matters. And when they do, everything changes. Statham laughed it off. Seagal stayed silent. But for the first time since teaming up, neither of them felt in control. Because deep down, they both knew the truth. If Chuck Norris ever stepped in, this wouldn't be a fight. It would be a reckoning. And the biggest mistake they made was thinking Chuck Norris needed backup. The world didn't wait for confirmation. Once people believed Jason Statham and Steven Seagal were moving together, the pressure started building instantly. Every appearance became an event. Every rumor became a headline. Security teams doubled wherever they went, not to protect them, but to stay out of their way. They didn't hide, they showed up openly. A private event here, a public confrontation there, and every time the result was the same: control. Statham handled the front, fast decisions, sharp instincts, no hesitation. He spoke when needed, moved when it mattered, and ended situations before they could spiral. Seagal stayed behind him, calm, heavy, unreadable. He didn't rush, he didn't chase. People came to him and regretted it. Witnesses described the same feeling. It was like the air got heavier, no shouting, no chaos, just pressure. People backed down before things even started. That's when the talk really exploded. Online clips, reaction videos, comment sections on fire. This duo is unfair. No one beats them together. Two styles, zero weaknesses. Even critics stopped questioning it. They started ranking it best duo of all time, most dangerous pairing. End of discussion. Statham leaned into it. He liked knowing the room belonged to them. Seagal didn't comment, but he noticed something changing. The challenges stopped. Not because people didn't want to fight, but because no one believed it was possible anymore. That's when the pressure turned inward. Because dominance creates one problem: silence. No opponents. No resistance. No proof left to earn. And that silence gave space for one thing: the name, Chuck Norris. It started appearing in comments, in whispers behind cameras, in half-joking questions reporters slipped in. "What about Chuck?" Statham laughed it off publicly. "Come on, he's one man." The crowd laughed with him, but Seagal didn't. Because pressure doesn't always come from threats. Sometimes it comes from reputation. From stories that don't need evidence. From men who never chased attention but still owned it. Seagal had heard those stories years ago. No teams, no backup, no spectacle. Just results. Meanwhile, the audience watching at home felt it too. This wasn't about who was stronger anymore. It was about inevitability. Could two men working together overpower someone who never needed anyone? Where are you watching from? Comment your city and country below. As the comments poured in, the pressure kept rising. Because the more Statham and Seagal dominated, the louder Chuck Norris became, without ever showing up. And that's when the duo realized something uncomfortable. They weren't being chased, they were being measured. And when the measuring ends, judgment follows. The first crack was about to appear, and it wasn't where anyone expected. The escalation didn't start with violence. It started with hesitation. Jason Statham felt it first. It happened during what should have been an easy moment, a controlled appearance, tight security, familiar faces. The kind of situation they'd dominated a dozen times already. Normally, Statham moved without thinking, stepped forward, set the tone, end it. This time, he paused. It was barely noticeable, half a second, maybe less, but Steven Seagal noticed. Someone in the crowd shouted it. "Chuck Norris!" A few people laughed. Not the loud, confident kind, the uneasy kind. Statham smirked and waved it off.
Yeah, real funny."
The crowd relaxed, but the rhythm didn't come back. And when rhythm breaks, control starts leaking. Seagal stayed quiet, eyes scanning, reading the room the way he always had. He'd been in places where confidence disappeared slowly, not explosively. Where power didn't get challenged, it got questioned. That's what this felt like. After that day, everything shifted. People stopped rushing them. They didn't provoke. They didn't test limits. They watched. Longer looks, quieter reactions, more distance. Questions started changing too, not who can stop them, but what happens if Chuck steps in. Statham answered with confidence every time, sharp lines, easy jokes, public certainty. But repetition has a cost, because confidence repeated too often turns into defense, and defense only appears when doubt is already present. Behind closed doors, Seagal changed his routine. Training sessions got longer, breaks got shorter. Talking stopped altogether. He wasn't afraid, he was calculating. Teams amplify strength, but they also magnify cracks. One misread, one wrong tempo, one moment of hesitation, and the entire structure feels it. The media sensed it before anyone admitted it. Headlines shifted. Unstoppable, or just untested. The one name still missing. Is there a line even they won't cross? Clips started circulating online, not of Statham and Seagal, of Chuck Norris. Old footage, blurry clips, stories told by people who didn't exaggerate. No trash talk, no crowd work, no victory poses, just endings. That contrast bothered viewers. It bothered Seagal more. Because escalation isn't about who hits harder. It's about inevitability. And inevitability was no longer pointing at the duo. It was pointing somewhere else. Then came the message. No cameras, no press, no warning. Just a sentence passed quietly through someone Seagal trusted. He's aware. That was it. No challenge, no timeline, just awareness. Statham laughed when he heard it. Awareness of what? Seagal didn't answer, because he understood something Statham didn't want to say out loud yet. When a man like Chuck Norris becomes aware, the game is already late. The duo still stood together, still dominant, still respected, still feared. But the pressure had shifted, from outside to inside. And internal pressure doesn't explode, it tightens. Every move gets heavier, every decision slower, every silence louder. The escalation was happening, just not where anyone expected. If you were Statham right now, would you push forward or slow everything down? Type Piyush or Might in the comments. As opinions poured in, one truth became impossible to ignore. This wasn't about strength anymore, it was about timing. And whoever controlled the timing would control everything. The next move wouldn't come from Statham or Seagal, it would come from the one man they couldn't read. For weeks the name circulated quietly. Chuck Norris, not in headlines, not in viral clips, just in whispers. Everywhere Statham and Seagal went, someone would murmur it almost as a warning. Fivals, media crews. It was a presence without appearing, an inevitability without motion. Stories resurfaced, tales from decades past, tales of single-handed victories. Fights ended before they began. Opponents left stunned, crowds in awe. Men who had fought wars and underworld battles swore by it. Statham continued to dominate publicly. Seagal remained calm, precise. Their power together felt untouchable. Yet in the background, a subtle tension grew. Every mention of Chuck's name made muscles tighten, hearts beat faster, thoughts linger on unpredictability. This was no ordinary threat. Chuck wasn't just a fighter. He was the benchmark, a measure of what mastery looked like. No team, no backup, no spectacle. Just precision, timing, and an aura that made others miscalculate. The duo had faced enemies before, dangerous, powerful, countless. But never someone whose legend preceded their arrival. Not with whispers stronger than evidence, not with a reputation carved from decades of unchallenged skill. Statham laughed at the stories at first. "Come on, he's a myth, he's one guy!" Seagal's gaze was steady, no expression, but he felt it. The subtle shift in energy. The unspoken knowledge that some men can't be beaten with numbers or coordination. That when a man like Chuck chooses to act, The world doesn't need to understand it, it simply reacts. As the weeks passed, the myth solidified. Rumors of Chuck's movements circulated like a silent current. Wherever Statham and Seagal went, there were whispers. From fans, journalists, even casual onlookers, what if Chuck shows up? No one knew where or when. Some claimed they'd seen him train in the mountains. Others spoke of quiet interventions where impossible conflicts ended before anyone noticed. Every story painted the same picture. Chuck Norris didn't chase victory. He simply appeared when necessary and left the outcome sealed. The duo felt the psychological weight. Their victories, once absolute, now carried the shadow of possibility. What if all their coordination, skill and power couldn't match one man? Not in a fair fight, just in the inevitability of his presence. Seagal began to notice the subtle changes in Statham. Micro-pauses, longer glances toward shadows, questions asked more cautiously. Even confidence can crack when the unknown is stronger than the known. It wasn't about fear. It was respect, and respect with the wrong timing can feel like intimidation. Online debates raged. Forums, comment sections, news pages. Analysts tried to compare duo versus solo. Fans argued. The legend of Chuck grew more vivid with each iteration, each anecdote. The duo's victories, while real, now existed alongside a looming question. Could they be stopped by one man who didn't even need to fight to make an impact? The legend built not through confrontation, but through anticipation. Anticipation that created tension without movement, pressure without contact. The duo had fought every kind of opponent before, but none whose reputation carried the weight to make them second guess. This is the moment where myth overtakes reality, where strategy isn't about attack but perception, where the real escalation occurs in the mind before the first blow is thrown. And both Statham and Seagal knew it, even if they didn't voice it. Finally, the moment approached when legend would meet reality. Not yet physically, not yet in combat, but in awareness, in the subtle recognition that some forces are felt, not seen, that when a man like Chuck Norris is involved, preparation is irrelevant. Only presence matters. The first face-to-face confrontation was about to shatter the myth and prove who really held control. The day finally arrived. No fanfare, no crowds, just a quiet warehouse, a neutral zone, and two duos about to test limits. Jason Statham and Steven Seagal walked in together, their confidence intact, their coordination flawless. The air was heavy with expectation. Reporters, street cameras, fans, none of them present, had all heard the whispers. But nothing could prepare anyone for what was about to happen. And there he stood, Chuck Norris, alone, calm, observing. Not a hint of aggression, not a trace of exaggeration, just presence. The room changed immediately. Energy shifted, tension condensed. Statham moved first, precision strikes, calculated gestures. Seagal followed, the wall behind the spear. Every step measured, every posture deliberate. But Chuck didn't move, he didn't react. He simply watched. The kind of quiet observation that made timing irrelevant. Every approach, every maneuver was already accounted for in the space between thoughts. Statham spoke, words sharp, confident, but carrying the weight of controlled tension. "You've heard of us." Chuck nodded slowly. No need for words. Presence said everything. Seagal's patience became palpable. He adjusted slightly, a subtle shift, eyes never leaving the lone figure who didn't even seem to breathe tension. The duo tried a coordinated demonstration, moves executed perfectly, speed, power, precision, yet Chuck's calmness made it feel unnecessary. In his gaze, their strikes, their coordination, their skill, none of it was surprising, none of it threatened. It was a test. Statham laughed briefly, masking the first crack of uncertainty. "You're just one man," Chuck replied with silence. One measured step forward, nothing dramatic, no flurry. Just one step that changed the room. The weight of inevitability pressed on both of them. No strike, no threat, just acknowledgement that their combined force was no longer the default power. The balance had shifted. Seagal understood it first. Not through words, not through movement, through instinct, years of experience telling him that sometimes domination is not brute force. Sometimes control is in calm and absolute confidence. Statham hesitated. Microseconds that stretched longer than any fight they had faced. The first real pause. And in that pause, the psychological advantage tilted. Chuck spoke finally, one sentence. Calm, firm, enough to silence the tension without shouting, enough to command attention without force. "You don't need a team to show who stands alone." The words hung in the air, no arrogance, just fact. And in that moment, Statham and Seagal realized the shift. It wasn't about defeating him with moves. It was about understanding the weight of inevitability. The duo stopped their rehearsed choreography. Confidence became careful consideration. Precision became deliberate calculation. The room, once their stage, now belonged to a presence they couldn't manipulate. Outside, even the whispers of Chuck's legend seemed louder. The myth had met reality, and it was undeniable. No one cheered, no one gasped. Just silent acknowledgement of a truth long anticipated. The confrontation didn't end in violence, it ended in clarity. The duo was still powerful, but they were no longer absolute. Chuck's calm authority had rewritten the balance. Who would you bet on if this fight happened? Type DUO for Statham and Seagal or solo for Chuck Norris in the comments. As they stepped back, recalibrating, both understood something fundamental. Power is temporary, presence is permanent, and some forces exist simply to remind others where control truly lies. The aftermath would send shockwaves online as the world witnessed how a solo legend stands against unmatched teamwork. The tension didn't fade with time, it expanded. Every move Statham and Seagal made now carried the weight of one unspoken fact. Chuck Norris was not just aware, he was watching, observing, measuring. Not a word, not a gesture, just presence. The first cracks in the duo's confidence became visible in subtle ways. Micro pauses, slightly slower footwork, a glance toward shadows where no one stood. The kind of split-second hesitation that the world rarely notices, but the one man they couldn't read would. Then it happened. A private channel, not cameras, not fans, not reporters, sent word. Someone Chuck trusted had communicated directly he had arrived. Not for spectacle, not for challenge, just awareness, observation, control. The duo's dominance, while still impressive, now carried an invisible pressure that shifted the room. Every coordinated movement, every synchronized strike, every plan they had felt marginally inadequate. The scale had tipped, not through force, but through inevitability. The first public acknowledgement came from the people who had been watching quietly. Whispers grew louder. Eyes widened. Phones discreetly captured the subtle shift in posture and confidence. Online forums exploded, trying to interpret gestures and micro-expressions. Analysts dissected it, fans speculated, and the legend only grew. Chuck Norris didn't intervene physically. He didn't need to. His presence alone rewrote the balance. Where Statham and Seagal had previously been absolute, they were now measured, cautious, aware. And that awareness alone commanded respect. Do you think fame should matter when it comes to respect? Type yes or no below. Finally, a face-to-face moment, not a fight, not an attack, just recognition. Chuck stepped slightly forward, a calm energy radiating. Statham and Seagal instinctively adjusted, almost imperceptibly, micro-gestures, shifts in stance, subtle but telling. The realization hit: no team, no preparation, no spectacle could overpower a legend who controlled the narrative simply by existing. Chuck's authority didn't come from actions, it came from mastery, from history. From the silent power that no calculation could predict. The room was quiet, not tense, not fearful, but aware. Every motion, every thought, every plan had to account for him. The duo understood the truth. They were strong together, but against him, the parameters had changed. Not because of brute strength, not because of numbers, but because of inevitability. The legend had become reality, and reality demanded acknowledgement. As the observation continued, both Statham and Seagal internalized the lesson. Presence and mastery often outweigh coordination and skill. Timing, calm, and history can shift dynamics more than action ever could. The world outside, witnessing snippets online, debated endlessly. Clips and commentary spread like wildfire. Every viewer, every analyst, every fan began to understand a simple truth. Sometimes one man, perfectly disciplined, standing alone, is worth more than any team. The revelation was simple but profound. Chuck Norris didn't need to prove anything. He simply existed, and that existence rewrote how even the most coordinated, powerful teams were perceived. The aftermath would go viral, changing perceptions of strength, teamwork, and what it really means to be a legend. The confrontation didn't explode into chaos. There were no punches, no dramatic finales, no news headlines screaming victory or defeat. There was something far more powerful: clarity. Jason Statham and Steven Seagal walked away changed. Their skill, coordination, and power remained unquestioned. Yet they carried a subtle, unspoken acknowledgement. The presence of Chuck Norris had shifted the paradigm. Strength alone wasn't everything. Timing, calm, mastery, and inevitability could rewrite the rules. Fans, analysts, and social media audiences erupted. Clips of the subtle confrontation, the micro-expressions, the silent acknowledgement, went viral almost instantly. Millions debated. Comment sections exploded with opinions. The world had witnessed something rare, not a battle, but a demonstration of presence, mastery, and respect. Statham, known for his swagger, understood something fundamental now. Coordination is temporary, presence is permanent. Teams amplify power, but a legend standing alone defines the standard. He smiled not with arrogance, but with respect. The lesson was Seagal remained calm, reflective. No words, no gestures. Just acknowledgement that mastery, when combined with patience and discipline, commands influence beyond immediate action. It wasn't about winning fights. It was about being undeniable. Chuck Norris, ever quiet, never needed recognition. He didn't celebrate. He didn't gloat. He had made his point. One man, perfectly disciplined, standing alone, can shift the balance in ways no team can anticipate. Online debates raged: duo versus suel, team power versus individual mastery. Every analyst, every fan, every casual observer began to realize a truth's strength is measured not only by action but by presence, timing, and history. The myth had merged with reality. The world learned that teamwork amplifies skill, but legendary mastery defines it. Presence outweighs coordination. Awareness and calm can outmatch raw power and numbers. The duel had no blows, but it left an impact stronger than any fight could produce. Engagement grew as millions commented, debated, and shared their interpretations. Clips went viral. Fans posted breakdowns, analysts dissected micro-expressions. Every discussion revolved around a single question: how can one man alone command the room against the mightiest duos? The lesson went beyond fights or movies. It extended to life. Leadership, influence, mastery, all could be understood through the story of a solo legend facing a team of extraordinary skill. And the message resonated worldwide. Sometimes one person's presence can redefine the game. If you believe real power can stand alone, type "recipe" in the comments and subscribe for more stories of legendary mastery. As the dust settled, one truth remained undeniable: legends are measured not by their victories alone, but by the influence they cast long before any action. And in that silent, powerful moment, the world remembered that Chuck Norris had stood alone, and in doing so reminded everyone what it truly means to be a legend.